All right. Okay. So we are starting the second chapter today. So let us begin. Om Sahana Vavatu Sahana Bhunaktu
भुनक्तु सह
Sahaviryam
वीर्यं
Bhavai
करवावहै
Tejasvinavaditamas
तेजस्विनावधीतमस्तु मा
Ma
विद्विषावहै।
Vidvishavahai. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Yogena Chittasya Padena Vacham Malam Sharirasya Cha Vaidyakena Yopakarotam Pravaram Muninam Patanjalim Pranjaliranatosmi Patanjalim Pranjaliranatosmi. Okay. Okay, so today we are starting the second chapter of Patanjali Yoga Sutra. And unlike the first chapter, this chapter is a lot more practical, meaning it has components which we can all use. We can use in whatever kind of practice, yoga practice that we are drawn to. Meaning the principles of this, what we are going to explore today. The basic format of what this chapter, whatever is our inclination, whether we are drawn towards the bhakti yoga, karma yoga, or towards jnana yoga, or dhyana yoga, raja yoga, all this, the format, whatever approach we want to use, the principles are the same. The principles and process that which will be covered. As we know, Patanjali Yoga Sutra is the oldest kind of a codified version for yoga, meaning philosophically and in terms of format. It is the oldest format of yoga that is given out. So this chapter is called as Sadhana Pada. The name of the chapter is called Sadhana Pada. What is the first chapter name? Anybody remembers?
Samadhipada.
Samadhipada. The first chapter was Samadhipada, and this chapter will be called as Sadhanapada. Okay, and then in this chapter, we go from where we had discussed in the previous chapter some points. See, the previous chapter in the very first and second, from second sutra, or the first sutra said, here begins the practice of yoga. And the second sutra, anybody remembers the second sutra?
Yoga Chitta Nirodha.
One word is missing.
Vritti.
Yoga's Chitta Vritti
Nirodha. Yes.
Chitta Vritti Nirodha. So there you see, right in the second sutra itself, already he's talking about Samadhi. Yoga's Chitta Vritti Nirodha. So right from the second sutra, the Samadhi Prakriya had begun. So then when we look at it, if the Samadhi thing had already begun, see this in the Bhashya, the first sutra of the second chapter. In that the Bhashya, I will just, one line Bhashya, I will just read out. Uddishtaha samahita chittasya yogaha katham vyuttita chittopi yoga yuktaha syad iti yetadaram arabhyate. Varun, can you read that first part of the Bhashya or the second chapter first, just the first part?
The yoga attained by yogin with an engrossed mind? Or
Yes, yeah.
the yoga attained by a yogin with an engrossed mind has been stated. This sutra introduces how a devotee with a distracted mind can also attain yoga.
So this is the hope for everyone. The first part says that the last chapter, for those who had an engrossed mind, who had already attained that samadhi, for them, what is the path? It was mentioned. So that means, like the first chapter, most of it is for that. Now it says for those who have a distracted mind. So I think if we ask, can we raise our hands if we have a distracted mind? So most of us, will probably lift our hand, right? So that for those who have at least sometimes when we have distracted mind, what is the hope? So can they practice yoga? So can they, meaning can they achieve that highest through yoga? So for them, the path now is begun. So he says the teachings now begin for those of us who haven't attained that samadhi. Whether you have attained any of the samadhis. So we discuss different classifications of samadhi, broadly samprajñata and asamprajñata. And in samprajñata, there were more varieties. What are the samprajñata samadhis? Varieties? Different samadhis in samprajñata.
Savichara, Nirvichara,
Savichara.
Savitarka, Nirvitarka.
Then two more.
Ananda and Asmita.
Two more. Vichara, Vitarka.
Asmita and Ananda.
Asmita, Ananda. So Vitarka, Vichara, Asmita, Ananda. Ananda, Asmita. So these were all different samadhis. So those who are able to achieve any of those samadhis, they were already practiced, they were qualified for yoga. What about those who are not, who are not attained that samadhi by now, who have not gained that samadhi? So there is actually the provision. See, if we take the really yoga path, if we really look at the yoga path, what is the highest aspect of yoga path? What is the highest practice? Meaning for those at the final stages of yoga, who are very qualified, who have that highest thing. What is that? Since we have heard that Samadhi Pada, can anybody identify what is possibly the highest process or practice?
It's a dhyana.
Anybody else?
It's subtle joy.
Subtle joy, yeah, that is better than that, yeah. What else?
Ritambara.
Ritambara is also true, yeah, then. So the highest level of practice for somebody who is very highly qualified to practice yoga, what is their practice or what do they have to do? Meaning what is their, what is that which will lead them to the kaivalya, the highest freedom?
Swamiji's dharana, dhyana.
No, see, we haven't come to Dharana Dhyana yet, So, see, until now, did we talk about Dharana Dhyana? See, if you look at the sutra, we didn't talk about Dharana Dhyana. We talked about Samadhi, but the Ashtanga Prakriya was not discussed so far, So here is where,
having all the thoughts, probably, right? So just having no thoughts.
Is it adhikara?
Adhikara?
No.
What do you mean when you say adhikara?
When they are able to create power?
Power. No, okay. See, the actual, it was mentioned, the highest yogic practice of all the practices, and this is where we are not, we don't, when we understand yoga as a philosophy, the highest aspect of yoga practice is viveka, discernment, discrimination, So this, anybody remembers what is the discernment between?
Purusha.
Purusha and Prakriti.
Yes, very good. Yeah, Purusha Prakriti. Okay, consciousness and matter, or consciousness and nature. Hmm? So this is the very interesting thing, See, if we really think of, as many of you answered, and this is a common misunderstanding. When we think of yoga, the highest practice is not meditation. We think it is meditation because we are used to seeing all yogis with closed eyes meditating, right? So this is our common notion, and it is actually true. When you come to samadhi, that ashtanga steps, that 8 steps, the last step before samadhi is dhyana. But really, even to do ashtanga yoga, it is for somebody who is lesser qualified according to the Yoga Shastra, So the one who is a real yogi is the one who is not necessarily meditating all the time. It is not like he's reached an advanced level of meditation. So this is why the teachings of Yoga Sutra has become a format for understanding the means to freedom. Unless, we think that this is common to think, like as many of you said, like stopping thoughts, quietening the mind and all that, because it all has to do with the mind. But the real discernment that happens in the mind, in the buddhi, we say, is this discernment or discrimination between consciousness and matter. And when we are able to reaffirm that I am consciousness and I'm not that matter. So here is where all the Vedas are similar. Whether we go through Vedanta or Yoga or Sankhya, they are same in that the means to freedom is through consciousness. Consciousness is the door through which we come to freedom. Realizing consciousness, pure consciousness. So in this step, they're all complementary. So this is why, these are all the Astika darshans that align with the Vedic trend. If yoga had said like how sometimes Buddha's teachings are interpreted, right? Buddha says there's nothing. One part of Buddhist school says there's nothing. The other part of Buddhist school says that there is only chit matra, only mind alone. But again, they don't exactly say this discernment in consciousness only. So all those traditions which talk about consciousness is that supreme reality are more or less aligned with the Vedic traditions. So consciousness is the heart matter of all Vedic schools. Okay, so now when we really look at it this way, right? The discernment between consciousness and matter is the highest thing. Now, what happens if you're not ready to do that discernment? For example, if you ask a person on the street, or if you even ask a scientist and you tell that person, do you know what consciousness is? So they might say, yeah, consciousness is to be alive, or consciousness is to think. As one of the famous philosophers said, he said that I exist because I think. I am, and I think, therefore I am. So that is the older definition of consciousness. And now scientists actually say consciousness is a product of the brain. The brain creates consciousness. This is one version. The other version kind of says that, consciousness is that subjective experience, but we don't know whether that consciousness exists beyond that. So there are all these kind of things. So what is consciousness? So consciousness, if we are taking Purusha, this is the thing that if we realize that Purusha has a pure consciousness, then we are not saying that the consciousness is there only when I'm awake. This is the first wrong notion. Nor are we saying that the consciousness is there only when the baby came into birth. That is also not the right notion of consciousness. So here, but anyway, people who don't understand this, or people who have not realized this in their own experience, Then what happens? We take it like how most of us are used to, that consciousness is something that comes as a product of the brain. If somebody is active in the brain, meaning they're not in a state of coma, deep sleep, drugged, or any of such things, then consciousness is there. This is a common notion. But the problem is that when you have this notion, then you cannot do viveka. Then you're not able to do discernment, because you have not at least forget about getting a direct experience or insight into consciousness. The concept of consciousness is not correct. So then, okay, if you don't believe, and if you don't, there is also still a means. So it is fine if you don't have to believe consciousness will stay beyond death. You don't have to believe consciousness is there when you are in deep sleep. Okay, then let us do one thing. The yoga is Patanjali Yoga Sutra is saying, we will come to a different kind of practices for you. So what are these practices? So here now it's from this level, the teachings is started. Teachings have started for someone who doesn't have a direct experience of consciousness, or who doesn't have enough faith or interest to explore directly into the nature of consciousness. Then what do you have? You have with you definitely the body. You can use the body. So what can you do with body? You can work with the body and do hatha yoga, asana, pranayama, all that is possible. And then but before coming to the body, he believes you also have a mind, So what can we do with the mind? We can work with the mind to create what is called as the right actions. Actions which have proper intentions. And this is his definition of what is called as Kriya Yoga. So today, the first sutra he explores is about Kriya Yoga. So before we do that, I just want to give an overview of this chapter, the second chapter, and I'll just quickly give you an overview, and then we will go into the actual sutras. So I'm just going to project the all of you, if you can see this. So the first thing, chapter 2, Sadhana Pada, it is also what I translated it as yoga practice, the principles and processes of sadhana. Sadhana means practice, literally. But here, sadhana means also what are the principle and practices of yoga. So who is qualified for this? So if somebody who is already reached samadhi, they have, hopefully those who attained samadhi will not come for this chapter anymore, right? We all finished, they attained that, and so they will not come for this class, this chapter. But anyway, I'm just joking. This is important also if anybody wants to teach, anybody wants to explain to somebody what is yoga, how do you go about learning yoga. So this is the most important chapter from the Patanjali Yoga Sutra perspective. So the first thing, it's a qualification, as I think one of you were saying, adhikara. Adhikara actually means qualification. Who is qualified for what? So it is here the qualification is somebody who is an intermediate sadhaka, an intermediate practitioner, or an early stage practitioner also is okay. But mostly we are starting with an intermediate practitioner. So for an intermediate practitioner, the practice given is Kriya Yoga. So we will talk about Kriya Yoga because again, sometimes there is also another kind of way Kriya Yoga is also used. But here Patanjali's definition of Kriya Yoga is a bit different. So we will explore that. And next he talks about kleshas. In the sutras 3 to 9, kleshas are those negative tendencies which keeps us trapped, our mental tendencies. So here, if you're taking just like how a psychologist, that your thought patterns are the cause of bad actions, bad habits, afflictions, addictions, attachments, all that is because of kleshas, wrong tendencies. And now how do you become free from that? If you do not work towards being free from these kleshas, negative tendencies, then what happens? Your actions, your karma, you are caught in that bondage of karma. See, when we have the wrong notion, we do wrong action. When our thinking and understanding is not complete, our actions are improper, and those improper actions put us in bondage, and this bondage is the cause of rebirths or samsaras, according to all Indian philosophies. Okay, and then he goes into the nature of seer and seen. Seer and seen, what do you think this is possibly? Seer and seen, what could it possibly be?
Purusha and Prakriti.
Purusha and Prakriti. The Purusha is which one?
The seer.
Seer. Purusha, consciousness is the seer. And what is seen is Prakriti. Matter is seen. So when we say matter is seen, matter includes all those things, body, mind, thoughts, everything is seen. So this is where, in fact, when even in Vedanta, the whole prakriya of Dragdrishya, it comes from here. This is the nature of seer and seen. And then the liberation, how does Purusha become free? How do you get what we call as Kaivalya, independence? Okay, and then we will go in this chapter about the sevenfold wisdom. And then we come to the 8 limbs of yoga. So you actually see this, that the one who is intermediate sadhaka or a little superior sadhaka, he will practice Kriya Yoga. And then one who is a lower sadhaka will actually practice Ashtanga Yoga. So this is these are the steps. Now then the next is practicing this. How do we practice that? Like Yama Niyama, especially the Yama Niyamas are the don'ts and do's. How do we go practicing them? And then he goes, in this chapter, he takes only asana, pranayama, pratyahara. The dharana, dhyana, samadhi, he doesn't take in this chapter. It will come in the next chapter. So this is the overview of this chapter. Okay. So now we will go into the first sutra. Today we will discuss the first sutra, and this is a very important sutra because it defines that practice for those who are intermediate yogis, those who have already started practicing yoga or any form of yoga. What is the means for them, whichever practice they have taken. And the first sutra, so if anybody wants to repeat, you can repeat the first sutra. Tapaswadhyayeshwara pranidhanani kriya yogaha tapaswadhyayeshwara pranidhanani kriya yogaha. So this chapter is this sutra here. He's talking about, he's talking about 3 things here. Tapaha, austerity. Swadhyaya, study, or what we can translate as self-study. Ishvara pranidhana. Ishvara pranidhana we translated in the first chapter also. It came, Ishvara pranidhana came there, but there we translated it as presence of Ishvara. Ishvara is that what we call as Ishvara is that first guru, the one guru, the what we call as the Adi Guru, the Param Guru or the first Guru. Of all gurus, he is the guru, it was mentioned, this is the Ishvara. So here, God is not that one who is a creator God, God is the one who is there to help you. He is there to help all beings in this world, but he doesn't create the world. So this is a yogic version of Ishvara. And he is the first guru. He is the guru from which all gurus came. Meaning all the yogic legions of Guru. So we are linked to him directly. Okay, so this is now, here the Ishvara Pranidhana is translated better as devotion, devotion, surrender to that guru, complete trust, surrender to that one guru who is there to guide you through many gurus, or through the gurus who have come in your life. You know that he's that one guru. Okay, now we will go into this. The first thing here is that we will look at the word first one by one. So now the Kriya Yoga, before we look at anything, see sometimes, Kriya Yoga, I think some of you are familiar, Kriya Yoga is used for also a specific meditation technique, And there is a later version of that, but Patanjali doesn't use Kriya Yoga, just has that. But yet you can also see why Kriya Yoga is used as like that, in that approach. See, the aspect of Kriya Yoga here represents three things. Austerity, anything that comprises some austerity, some kind of tapa. So now I will just look at the Bhashya here and go part by part and see in that Sanskrit one, he says, Na tapasvino yogaha siddhyate. Anadi karma klesha vasana chitra pratyupastita vishaya jala cha ashuddhinar ashuddhinar nantarena tapa sambheda madhyapadya iti tapasa upadanam. So maybe the first segment, Varun, can you just read that, the first paragraph of the Bhashya?
Yes, Swamiji. A man without self-discipline cannot attain perfection in yoga. The impurities or the dross in the mind arising out of the snares of the worldly objects, which are harmful to yoga, are colored by the vasanas of actions and afflictions from beginningless time, and they cannot be got rid or dissipated without the practice of austerities. That is why austerities have been practiced. It has been recommended that an undisturbed course of self-purificatory conduct should be practiced by yogins, since this leads to cleanliness and purity of mind.
Okay, so he equates tapas meaning austerity, with cleanliness and purity of mind. So let us look at what does he mean by purity of mind. We can understand what is meant by purity of the body, right? Purity of body is like if my body is unclean, I need to have a bath or wash. But here, what is meant by purity of mind? So he equates that when the mind is filled with certain dross, or meaning like certain kind of lethargy, or most importantly, vasanas. Vasanas are these addictive patterns which has been accumulated over lifetimes, or in this life only. See, if there is some habit, So now he says, how do you clarify that habits, whatever habits we have had, which doesn't help us, which has causing us problems, any habits, how do we be free from that habit? So here he is using this aspect where he's saying the impurities in the mind arising out of the snares of worldly objects, which are harmful to yoga. Worldly objects, how can worldly objects be harmful to yoga? So here is where it's the yoga's thing is everything I see, everything I get attached to, everything I indulge in creates an impression in the mind. So this is where we are trapped. We are trapped not so much by like things that is happening in the outward world. We are trapped because our mind already has those impressions. And these impressions, samskaras or vasanas, which we say, what do? They will make you to not only look for those objects, but they will bring those objects in your life. people, conditions, and all that. See, this is why, like sometimes even when we have, we are not in the those some things that we are addicted to. It's not in our presence. Our mind will start thinking about it because those samskaras are there. Now, how do you be free from that? That purification, that ability to be free from that, is what he's calling as tapa. See, the tapas is not the tapas which is like sitting and like undergoing a lot of what do you call, like without eating, without doing things. The real tapas is that practicing that conscious self-control or balance. And the Bhagavad Gita, there is a shloka which explains that. It says, Yukta hara viharasya, yukta chestasya karmasu, yukta swapna vibodasya, yogi bhavati dukkha. A person who is not doing extremes of anything, one who doesn't completely give up all eating and torture the body, but nor does he overeat, and one who doesn't get overworked and stress himself out, nor is he completely giving away all sleep. He is the one who is the right practitioner yogi. And this is how tapas we have to see. Tapas is that middle path. You need to have the body, you need to have the mind in order for the mind to do the viveka. But yet, any kind of indulgence, any kind of thing that indulges that body, then that body gets again trapped. So both of them accumulate karma. The one who tortures the body also accumulates karma. The one who overindulges the body, even that person accumulates karma. So the tapa here is that. Tapa is that purity, ability to stay in the middle, ability to have that self-control. So that is again a part of Kriya Yoga here. Why is that a part of Kriya Yoga? Is because, see, that's these three things are the components of Kriya Yoga: Tapa, Swadhyaya, and Ishvara Pranidhana. Without this, that doesn't come. Now, the second part of it is Swadhyaya. Swadhyaya here is that we are translating it as self-study, but it's a little more than that. So let me just read out here what the Bhashya is. Swadhyayaha pranavadi pavitranam japaha moksha shastra dhyayanam va. So Varun, can you read that part, that just the Swadhyaya part?
Yes. Swadhyaya, repetition of sacred mantra, example the sacred syllable Om, or study of scriptures relating to moksha or freedom from bondage.
So here he says the sacred mantra, that in the Bhashya it's mentioned any mantra that is purification. Here we can say the Om, but any mantra that we have attained, we have got through the tradition or we have been given. Or of course Om, so these mantras, what they do, they are the means of us to reach our true self. And he adds to that study of scriptures relating to moksha, So now if we can think of those, what are these moksha shastra? This moksha shastra, we talk about mostly those in, like, especially from the yoga, Patanjali Yoga Sutra we are talking, but from Vedanta we talk mostly the Upanishads. They are more or less the moksha shastra, because all other parts of Vedas don't directly attribute to moksha. So this part of thing is a moksha shastra. So the study, the ability to be aware, come to that point of self-study. Anything else is not swadhyaya. Anything else is not self-study. See, what about books that will help me understand my mind? What about books that are dealing with just self-help and all that, So they may contribute, they may help you to be a better person, but they are not directly contributing for you to become free. Because they don't give a direct insight into the nature of consciousness. So that is the important aspect of Kriya Yoga. So again, if we don't, it is not like, we shouldn't study other things, but the person who is at that stage, of intermediate practitioner, he shouldn't dwell too much on the other things, and also mantras. Mantras, we have many mantras. So we have to be also careful, like some mantras are helping us direct the energy in that line, But the most efficacious mantra, the one that helps us the most, is the mantra we receive through a tradition, or those mantras which are directly related to that Supreme God, Supreme Ishvara. So there are lots of mantras, but each mantra, see, this is what, in Bhagavad Gita also, the Lord says, those who pray to the lesser gods, they go to the lesser gods, meaning they don't attain that final freedom. Those who pray to the highest devotee, highest God, they are those who come to me, So this is how, like the mantras also, what is the purification mantra? Pavitranam, here he says. Purification and tapas, both of them go together in the process of Kriya Yoga. And now the last and most important one, and this is the one which we will do. See, now he talks about this Kriya Yoga, the last aspect, Ishvara Pranidhana. Sorry, the Bhashya here says, Ishvara Pranidhanam Sarva Kriyanam Parama Gura Varpanam Tat Phala Sanyasayo Va. So, Varun, can you take that? The last part.
Ishwar Pranidhana, surrender of all actions to the great master God. That is, abandonment of all hankering after the fruits of action.
So this is another famous shloka in Bhagavad Gita, which says, Karmanyevadhikaraste ma phaleshu kadachana ma karma phalaheturpu mate sangostva karmani. You have the right to perform actions, but not to expect the results of the actions. Because the moment you consider that the actions that you do should give you a results, then you have come into bondage. Meaning all our actions have to be from that thing of karma yoga. And this word kriya yoga, if you look at the Sanskrit, this one, that kriya means that action, which is you are indulging in. I mean, you're doing those actions which doesn't give you bondage. So it is not just karma yoga. Kriya yoga, that is also action. Karma yoga is also action. But here, kriya yoga is specifically referring to those yoga which has these three components. Ishvara Pranidhana, you have offered the results of the action to God or the divine. You're not expecting results from that action. Not even that somebody has to praise me, somebody has to look up to me because I did this. So even that you have forsaken. Secondly, you are engaging in those actions for the sake of highest liberation, freedom. That's Swadhyaya. And the last is, it's a form of austerity. You are doing it as not for sensual gratification. So these three are the components of Kriya Yoga here. And of course, when you see other yogic techniques also which talk about Kriya Yoga, they are based on this format, that action is that highest action which doesn't put you in bondage. That action which we purify through offering it to God or to any divine, that is the only action which becomes Kriya Yoga, because it has the Ishvara Pranidhana. Ishvara Pranidhana, again here, I mentioned Ishvara Pranidhana in that last chapter was practicing the presence of God or master or guru or divine, anyone. Here it is not that. Here it is complete surrender. Why we have to do surrender here is because, see, that action which we are expecting results in, it comes from an inferior state of mind. A common man expects that I am the one who is acting and I will get results from that action. But a person who has a higher wisdom realizes that by not wanting the results of my action, I get better results. This is I forgot the word, but there is this way of saying that when you work with a higher logic, you work with a logic, but it's a higher logic. It's a superior kind of logic. Logic is that, the normal human logic is I am the cause and I create the effect. I do this action, I get the results. So that is at the material level, that is true. But at a spiritual level, what is happening is an action you do with the sense of offering it to divine, offering it to think. It creates for you better results because the action that you have done by yourself will put you in bondage. So, it requires a little bit more of subtle thought. Like if I act something because I want something, there's nothing wrong in that. But if I'm expecting results and acting, then what has happened? I'm already mentally attached to that results, and that results is already a mental bondage for me. But the moment I say I don't want the result, but I'll still act. Ma karma pala heturbo. You are not going to just sit back and say that because I don't want results, I will not act. It's not like that. I will still act, but I will not expect that I should get these results. Then what happens? Our mind is become purified. The defilement of the mind is when it is attached to that result. The purification of the mind is you have dropped the result, but still you are acting. And this kind of purification is that what will attract to us is good things in life. The higher benefits, the higher thoughts, the purer thoughts will come. See, the person who is really wanting to study yoga, practice yoga, he has to, some point or the other, learn this art of karma yoga or kriya yoga here, Because if we are acting from results, it is a normal thing which will not allow us to do subtle thinking, A person who is able to do karma yoga and seva and all that in all our ashrams and all that, for many of us for years we had to do seva. You don't get paid and all that, but you're doing it because you are doing it for that thoughts becoming pure, mind becoming pure. And then what happens? A person who has that level of thing is able to think deeper, is able to think of subtler things in life, deeper things in life. A normal person will only think about material things, what I see, what I can perceive, that only. Okay, so I think this is good for today. I think the main topic here of Kriya Yoga will go on for a while. So again, like if you take the three stages of yogis, the first chapter was meant for yogi who was Uttamadhikari, the highest qualified yogi. For them, the Samadhi Pada was given. Now the second intermediate yogi, they are already interested in yogi and they are attending weekly classes of yoga and all that. So for them, we are now talking about Kriya Yoga. And then many of them are still to kind of come to India, come to Rishikesh and still explore yoga. For them, Ashtanga Yoga, the 8 limbs of yoga, which will come later. Okay. All right, so these are the different stages of yoga, and the Kriya Yoga part will go on for a while. And because Kriya Yoga involves mental purity, he will talk about kleshas meaning afflictions of the mind. So this is a very deep yoga psychology, which is about discussed in the next few sutras. Okay, any questions, comments? We will take for 10 minutes and then we will end the class. Rui, Jessica, anyone?
Swamiji, I was just thinking that, as you were saying in the beginning, that for the highest stage of a yogi, his practice is viveka. So in the highest stage, he becomes a jnani. He just needs to
Yes.
know.
Yeah.
You come to that knowing that you are consciousness itself, and sees everything as consciousness, and consciousness working through consciousness, in consciousness. Becoming a jnani.
Yes. Yeah, actually, you can say jnani, but really, a person who is also in that goes through bhakti yoga or whatever other yogas will also come to that jnana. The knowledge is that wisdom is what is lead to freedom. Whether they have come through, see, the people who have come through bhakti yoga, they are able to abide in purity of the mind faster. So, but yeah, you're right. He does become a jnani. We say he becomes a jnani ultimately. A yogi, the highest yogi is a jnani. Has to be a jnani. Then only he realizes what is real and unreal. Meaning what is consciousness and matter.
The Bhakti
He
Yoga
says that word is viveka khyati. The highest practice is viveka khyati. Using of viveka, and that is what leads to kaivalya. Good. Pradesh.
No, I was saying, interestingly, the one of the factors here is swadhyaya, which is, I mean, in a sense, is talking about japa itself, right? Which is the essential part of bhakti yoga also.
Yes. Swadhyaya. Here, swadhyaya, when we talk about, we have already come to that part of purifying the mind. Like what Rui was just saying, that highest yogi has already gone beyond purification of mind. So the japa, as you said, as you are saying correctly, it's a part of bhakti in that thing. Or you don't, not even bhakti, it is also part of dhyana, meditation. The japa is also part, but that is a part of purification of the mind. Not that viveka khyati. See, unless the mind is purified, you will not be able to do discernment between real and unreal. We are only doing discernment between one unreal to another unreal most of the time. A purified mind alone has a glimpse of what is real, and then it can do discernment between what is real and unreal. At the most, for us, the diet, if we do viveka, it will be between whether I have bananas or I have chocolates, but it is not between whether I live on energy or I live on food. Kind of thing. Yeah.
And I used to correlate this swadhyaya, this self-study, with like an attitude of constant analysis of your traits, your vasanas, your traits of personality, and like with tapas, with austerity, and with surrendering all your actions to a higher God, to a higher power. Achieving that purity of mind. So like it's like you're cleaning the diamond continuously. You need to study the diamond, to look at it from all perspectives, so that you can continue to clean your mind and attain that yoga. But today you were talking about swadhyaya in another perspective also, right?
Yeah, no, actually this is what the Bhashyakara there is saying, the commentator is saying about swadhyaya. But you're right that when you really explore swadhyaya, meaning if I were to kind of have a workshop or do retreat on swadhyaya, then it will include this aspect of what you're talking, introspecting, knowing about yourself. And in our ashrams, this is what we would practice every day. They would say swadhyaya time means you would introspect on your intentions, your thoughts, your actions, your goals, and all that. So that is true. But you see that aspect of Swadhyaya here, why he's talking about japa and that study of liberating teachings, moksha shastra here, is because here he is talking about that mind which is able to even look at itself. See, who is a person who wants to introspect? Only when that person has a sense that I may be wrong or I may not be perfect. If somebody already kind of has that feeling that, okay, I'm already okay, everybody else is wrong. Most people in the world live in that kind of thing, right? So those people will not introspect. They will not even think about that. So, but in order to, what you're saying is that higher aspect of Swadhyaya. In reality, not only are you reading the text, you are using the text as a mirror. The texts are supposed to give you a mirror into your own kleshas, which will come in the next this one. What do I need to change? What do I need to improve? These aspects of you can call the human personality. And here again, we have to be careful when we talk about this human personality. It is not about being a perfect person, so everybody loves me kind of thing, in the world. It is in that sense of where I can be true to self, meaning that consciousness, that universal consciousness. Not just because I'm better. So yeah, anyway, just to come back to your point, that Swadhyaya, when we really understand Swadhyaya, it does come to this point of using the scriptures as a mirror, to understanding ourselves, where we need to correct. Meaning, like if we are not up to that level, what the texts are talking about, then we need to make that corrections in our life. Yeah, in fact, some teachers only take that, some of the more modern teachers of yoga, they only talk about Swadhyaya from that perspective. They don't talk about Swadhyaya. But the problem is what happens, with reference to what are you introspecting? So here he's saying that it is with reference to that moksha shastra, that liberating teachings. Nishant.
Swamiji,
Nishant, you have to put your video on when you talk.
All right. Sorry. Swamiji, the part you were talked about the Kriya Yoga, that is Tapas, Swadhyaya, and Ishwar Pranidhana. So my question is this: is it different from the second limb of the Stang Yoga that is come under the Niyama, or more or less it is the same?
Good. Yeah, that's a good point. See, the three things here will also come in Niyama. The Swadhyaya, Ishvara Pranidhana, Tapaswadhyaya, Ishvara Pranidhana will also come in Niyama. So, see, Niyamas are those things that we have to do. Actually, if you look at it, the don'ts are yamas. That ahimsa, asteya, aparigraha are all don'ts. The do's are niyamas. So the do's are those kriyas, actions. That what you have to do, So in one way, these will again come in niyamas, the Ishvara Pranidhana and all that. So, but there, what is happening is, there it is not taken as direct path to liberation. There it is spoken as a vision that these are the things to practice. Here it is taken as these are the things which you have to abide in by itself. So there it is that first thing that at least you have to have that idea that if I don't practice this, then I cannot even go to asanas, that kind of step, there. But that is why these are very powerful. By itself, these have the potential to lead us to samadhi, these three things. Why? Because that complete surrender of all of one's actions to Ishvara or Guru or Master or God, that has that thing to get that grace of God, or the grace which empowers us. And if you also look at it, that word he uses for Swadhyaya here is Om, and what is Om? It came before. In one of the sutra, it came.
Pranava.
Universal sound.
But it came in a sutra. So, tasya vachakaha pranavaha. The name of Ishvara is Om. So, meaning the name, we are not calling Ishvara as Ishvara. Then what happens, like if you understand Indian cosmology, people will say there's Ishvara, there's Ram, there's all different things, they will. Each one will say. So here the real name of Ishvara means that one universal word, or that one force. That is the Om here. It's yes. So that is also part of Swadhyaya. That is part of the means of Swadhyaya. Yeah, but that's true. We will cover this again in Niyama, the part in Niyama. Okay. Om Purnamada Purnamidam Purnat Purnamadachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnamevavashishyate. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Okay, thank you all. Namaste.